So a quick intro. So Felix, I think he attended the Meetup once. He became a Rust developer recently.
Yeah,
very recently. And I think a common topic of conversation, the Rust community, is where do you find a job where you can actually do Rust for a living? And also, how do you get started? How do you get to the point where you feel confident enough to program Rust? So I asked Felix to come and talk about his own story. So how he learned Rust, how he then got a job in Rust, and so that maybe some of you might be inspired by his story. So I'll try to change the setup. So you can sit, but I think I'll do that. And if you see,
I stand?
oh, you can actually stand. Yeah, actually, that's cool. Can you talk? And do you hear him?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear him.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Felix. I'm a newlywed Rust developer. My previous experience was pretty light. I used to write in the almighty stack of Visual Basic, ASP.NET with a bootstrap front end. And I quickly left that job to study philosophy for a couple of years. I quickly left that to become a Rust developer. We'll see how long I last. And it's funny actually because when I was asked to do this talk, I actually lost my job after a week later. Yeah, really. But I managed to get another one. So my new place is called Inview Network. At our essence, we're basically crowdfunding. We use blockchain for some of our functionality. I'm not going to talk about blockchain. Talk only a little bit at the end. More geared towards maybe web developers and maybe more junior developers that want a job in Rust and blockchain. So yeah, what am I going to talk about for most of it? I mean, I'm going to talk about the lack of devs in the space. I'm going to be talking about why Rust maybe is a good space for junior developers. And the question why there are no junior jobs in the space, and maybe the outcomes of that. I'd like this to be more of a discussion based, but also
That's the question.
yeah, just I'm not a source of truth at all. I'm a source of question.
Okay, let's change the format. We're going to be interview. So why did you decide to do this? What put you on the children?
That's a good question. It's about January, the start of this year. I wanted to learn a new language. I was scouring the internet to see what would fit in the domain that I wanted. And Rust seemed to fit in that space quite nicely. And it also seems to be the sort of, the ghost of languages coming up, the greatest of all time, I should say. For numerous reasons, probably the status quo. And so I wanted to get into blockchain space, that was what I mean. But yeah, that's the point. I mean, generally speaking, there's a lack of devs in space.
So did you see it like as an opportunity for your career? Or did you think that there was something you really liked as part of Rust switching?
I like to say a bit of both. Yeah, I like to say a bit of both. I mean, it was convincing because of the features, but also it was used in the industry. So it was kind of a no-brainer in a sense.
Just try to speak louder. Good. Yeah, I'm going to ask a question more loudly, so I think now you should hear me.
Sorry, Fika, we can't hear you at all.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay, and now?
Yeah, that's
Much
good.
better, much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. We're trying a new format. Yes, Marianne.
You say there's a lack of developer in the space. Is there some industry in particular that is hiring and just struggling?
So did you just maybe need to repeat the question. So the question was, so Felix said there is a lack of developers, Rust developers in the market, but is this more more true for a specific industry or not?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The majority of jobs I've seen are sort of infrastructure heavy, but the ones I'm working is actually not that low level. It's actually quite web developer friendly, and it lives on the substrate framework. So it's creating sort of application-specific blockchains, but it's basically the back end of the website. That's its essence. So, and in that space in particular, in the substrate space, yeah, a lot of jobs if you're willing to get paid in tokens.
So you said it's being a Rust developer is nice for juniors. If you'd like to get started.
Yeah, I mean,
why?
I think it's not an opinion. I mean, from my point of view, picking it up, it was quite easy just to get a first program up and running, even if it's just a little. But there's a comparison that's usually made between Rust and C++, probably because they're similar use cases and we've got our own group for it. But Rust itself, I find extremely readable. I find that it's very guiding in its hand. Documentation is good, and the tooling is good enough for my primitive needs. But also, it's very hard to make critical errors with Rust compared to C++. Anyway, so for me, it seems like it's a good environment for juniors to sort of be brought up and nurtured, and I wish I had nurturing. But there are no rules for juniors at all. There are absolutely no roles. Maybe once every 3 months, some role with 200 applicants may come up. So it's quite hard if you don't have extensive C++ experience, along with some commercial Rust experience or whatever. Coming from a Visual Basic background, nobody's going to want me. Yeah, and this may be because it's quite an advanced topic that's being written on time constraints, but assuming these things can be learned or around, so much more. Which brings me on to say that juniors perhaps are going to play a key role in sort of expanding the adoption of Rust. And actually, with the lack of Rust developers, I think they're going to be quite essential to increasing the talent.
So I suppose you had to have lots of interviews, many companies, hopefully. How were the interviews? So are they usually more Rust focused? So trying to understand your knowledge of Rust, or is it something, for example, Rust is not talked too much about because they give you time to learn it as well?
Yeah, so I guess the way I found myself into a job was more about networking as opposed to my Rust knowledge.
Okay.
Strangely enough, so get a few technical questions either about the framework we use or security, but for the most part, we sort of interact with them. And I mean, the main way I got into the industry was through a boot camp. It's quite a novel boot camp. It's called Blockchain Academy. It was sort of the inaugural event. I lasted for about a month over the summer, and it sounds like a promotion for it, and it kind of is. It introduces you to a lot of teams, and it teaches you about fundamentals of blockchain research. And so the interviews were less about what you know, you are, what your goals are, and what you think you can bring to the table. But also, I guess you do need to have sort of projects which are relevant.
Side projects.
Side projects, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's not what we can do in Visual Basic.
It's like you're traumatized by it.
Really, it wasn't great.
Um, yeah, so I think there was an earlier question on pay.
Hmm.
So someone said that it's a bit difficult to find Rust developers, and someone said that maybe because of the pay. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it's hard for me to say. I can maybe find alternative methods. I believe there are jobs out there that pay less. I mean, when you mean paid, you mean paid too high or
Too, probably too low.
too low?
Non-fiction game before game development.
To say it's too low, I mean, I'll accept peanuts. So yeah.
I disagree with that. There's a lot of companies paying really competitive salaries now because it is difficult to get the right talent in the video game industry. I know the company I particularly work for, and I actually do the hiring. We offer really good salaries, but as I said, we just can't find the experience. I don't know what it is, but it's there's a lot of demand and not enough supply, I feel.
And I have a question for you. So, would you consider opening up for junior roles within your company?
Not at the moment, no. That's the difficult thing at the moment because of this particular situation we find ourselves in. For juniors is very difficult. But I would like to. And if you are going for a junior role, I recommend that you show passion for the role, passion to learn. That's important because if you're showing that you're able to learn, you're flexible, you're not opinionated, that means that even if you don't have the experience, we can invest in you to get the experience, and so we're more likely to take more of a risk. I certainly did that while trying to hire a senior role, and I went for a mid-level programmer because I believe they had a really good attitude to learning more. It just showed. But also, I would definitely recommend getting your teeth in some projects and just, if you can demonstrate and show off what you've done, then that makes it a lot easier for us and it allows hirers to trust that you are willing and you are capable at a junior level.
Yeah, I mean, but if you can try and find advertising for that, it's possible. Really is. Nobody wants junior Rust developers.
Someone asked the question actually. Since you're talking about advertising, where do you find Rust jobs?
There's a few new websites popping up.
The specialized websites.
Yeah, specialized in just Rust. Again, usually senior roles, but also for Substrate, which is the blockchain framework that is written in Rust as well. So it's Substrate specific, which is probably quite a lot for Rust jobs, and then there's also Rust specific jobs. I don't have the URLs, but if you type in Substrate jobs, Rust jobs, you'll find a lot. I think. Is any good?
So in your daily jobs, what part of the ecosystem, that was one of the questions, do you interact with the most? So what kind of crates you use the most? So library, packages, etc.
It's a good question. So Substrate itself is no STD, so a lot of the elements have been built in-house. And also, since Substrate started to come to creation about 2017-18, a lot of the packages weren't sort of available at the time. So the Parity have actually maintained and built a lot of sort of WASM interpreters and all sorts of stuff. The Parity is sort of a blockchain giant who write most of the code in Rust, and they built Substrate. So you have to ask Parity.
So you use WebAssembly.
Yeah, it's WebAssembly. Yeah. So the runtime itself is WebAssembly, so that you can upgrade all the nodes simultaneously without permission of the node runner. Yeah.
Okay. There is more questions about side projects. Actually, I want to ask you, did you have side projects?
Yes, yeah, I did.
what were
I actually tried to use WGPU, and I made this awful example of cellular automata, sort of Conway's Game of Life. I tried to make it in 3D, and I'd never look at that code base ever again. So I won't share it with you. But for more sort of specific projects, I've got sort of a staking palette within the substrate. Sort of manages users funds states on a node. It doesn't do much else with it, but yeah. What else? I mean, my first project was a fractal trees project. So,
Fractal tree.
yeah.
Nice.
And now I'm working on sort of a key value try. Rust, of course.
How did you find the learning curve for learning Rust?
I would repeat the question just in case. The question was, how did you find the learning curve when learning Rust?
Well, I actually started running Rust in anyone who code wars. Anyone had a code wars. So the best way of me getting good at Rust is to complete programming challenges. But it doesn't have sort of Rust analyzer, so you can compile like 20 times before it compile, and it'd be wrong. So I mean, that experience itself wasn't that pleasant. But I mean, picking up generics was relatively simple, I thought. Just because it's laid out so easily, and the error messages are so lovely. I mean, it truly is compiler-driven development. And if I'm missing a trait, I can write the assumed method, and it will actually suggest the trait that I want. And it's, so I don't have to go searching through documentation to find the trait I want. Just assume that it will be correct and then get the trait. So I found it quite complex. Yeah. I didn't find it. I mean, compared to C++, for example, they didn't learn C++ from scratch. Yeah, exactly. I've never written a single line of C in my life. I don't think that would work.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
I'll say we do like C++ here as well from the Rust and C++ people, but I do think it's a lot easier in a company. Whereas the nice thing about Rust is even if you're not working in Rust, it's easy to pick up the ecosystem. It's easy to get your machine set up. It's just really fast to get up and running. Whereas C++, like you shoot yourself in the foot, even once you've set up, like to go beyond writing a single file program to like a bigger project is a real headache to get started. Whereas with Rust, it's so much easier.
I think we started a conversation between Rust and C++ because it's kind of the.
What I would advise if you want to learn Rust is to figure out a little project to do it. And one of the things that we've done on the Cardiff Discord channel is set up live coding channels where you can go on and just share your screen and just program and have other people watch you and hopefully give you advice, or maybe they want to learn from that and so forth. I saw that quite effectively on the Rust official Discord servers, and I thought it was really, really cool. So for myself, every Sunday I'm trying to write an emulator in Rust, and doing that on the live coding. So maybe you might want to do it on the Bristol one, the Bristol server perhaps. And encourage people to do just write some small programs and get people to watch them. And I think having that kind of constant code review of people looking over your shoulder, it really helps. I learned a few things by doing it.
Yeah, I think that's something we discussed at some point before. We might do it in the future. I think at the moment we're just Josh and I are very busy. So it's a bit difficult sometimes. I think that's coming. We're just getting started with this group in the future. Did you have anything else on your notes?
We jumped around a little bit. So,
really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to stress more than anything that networking is really important. If you have an event on, yes, networking, turning it to events that interest you. is really important. Because it's quite a small world, so the Rust world, blockchain world especially, it's actually really, really small. You'd be surprised when you time to meet people around it. I do want to talk about the next Polkadot Blockchain Academy a little bit. It's in Buenos Aires. You can sign up at Polkadot Academy, polkadot.network/academy. If you just type in Polkadot Academy, I'd recommend everyone applies if you want.
You did it to
Yes.
learn Rust as well.
I did that. I'd learned a little bit of Rust. It deals with a lot of generics.
Okay. Any other question? Yeah.
It's highly emphasized questions regularly. We have also a lot of industries, Rust is, and what you said about embedded or text analysis, whatever. Is that any examples of whatever?
Probably speak generally, not specifically. I mean, generally, we want something that is fast, secure, reliable. I'd like to think that.
I think that.
Sorry,
as
could
well
you
as-
repeat the question, please?
So, what other industries are there jobs available in Rust? You know, for sort of embedded or sort of networking.
Yeah. So what other industries? But also the reasons, I guess. I think I'm hearing the case more and more often of productivity. So I think a year or 2 years ago, when you mentioned Rust, people were saying like, oh, the learning curve is actually difficult. But now we have like more production use of Rust. But I just realized that the learning curve is actually ridiculous because you spend so little time on debugging and fixing things, etc. But actually it's cheap. So it's totally fine. And then you have the other thing which is like locality in the code. So when you want to modify something in Rust, because you have such a strong typing system and a very friendly compiler, you don't need to change things in dozens of files or need to understand everything absolutely to do your modification. Actually, you can just stay in one file, sometimes just in a single function, and you can do very complex things there, and it's not work everywhere else. I think someone said, someone named that like locality friendly, you could change the thing. I don't know. I think it's a case that I'm hearing more and more. It's fast, it's reliable, it's safe, but it's also quite predictable at some point. So you do get more done in the meantime. In the short term, you pay a little for the learning because you have to learn ownership, which is something you've probably never done in any other programming language. But then once you get used to it, you go really fast in development. You don't spend too much time developing. So I think I'm hearing that case, but I don't know if anyone has a thanks, Victor, embedded development, database programming, impacted development. Yes, actually, database. I gave a talk last time on data engineering. So we're seeing more and more projects in data engineering that field in Rust. So what Java used to be the dominion, the field, and now lots of new projects for next gen, their Rust phase, which is quite interesting. You have like materialize, you have
I would say that WASM is the exciting thing that's coming. Coupled with WASI, I will probably replace Docker in the future. I can see it being extremely popular in backend stuff, servers, and so forth. And I would say Rust is the best programming language for doing stuff in WASM because the tooling's it's there, it's great, and that is an exciting thing. That's going to make things a lot simpler, I think.
I'm currently using U to work with WASM for a front-end web service. It's been very exciting to work with.
Also, I've been recently looking at Sycamore. You might not be as performant, and some new frameworks with some interesting ideas like Sycamore and Leptos. I started looking at myself. I can't say definitively if one's faster than the other, but there's definitely a lot of development there being done in user interfaces and web client side and server side.
Who is using WASM? That's another question, because it's a technology, but adoption is a bit slow. But it's changing in apps teams. So interestingly, you have now edge computing that's preparing here on that with Cloudflare workers, faster compute, etc. So different platforms, and they give you the opportunity to just run small WASM modules at the edge for users, so that you can process requests way faster with low latency. And interestingly, more and more apps teams, like normal teams in companies that do e-commerce, that do infrastructure and service, etc. All of them are deploying new apps at the edge, so new small apps at the edge, and they're using increasingly using WASM. I think that's the thing that is way overlooked. The market is like people don't see it, but it's quite fascinating to see that. I know that Shopify is deploying like new massive products at the edge, and they use WASM. So I guess in a year or two we see like the rest of the day everywhere, like in many companies that are not tech oriented.
With the latest news that's under the external, you reckon more companies will actually start to post sort of driving signals as well. But you reckon now it's going to be a lot longer.
Joshua, I think Joshua works on firmware.
Yeah, what was that? I didn't really hear the question, sorry.
Sorry. So in terms of firmware and the embedded space, what's going on there with Rust?
Yeah, so my job is basically using Rust to write control software that runs on an embedded Linux machine that sits on top home battery system, which also connects to solar panels and things like that. And it's pretty good at that sort of thing. We're also starting to use it more for embedded stuff. So this is embedded as well, but sort of embedded, but without the standard library that's running on microcontrollers and things like that. Quite a lot of that is still written in C, but that is going to change. And Rust is now a really, really nice way to write microcontroller code. You know, it's pretty much as fast as C, but it's often easier to set up. There are some really nice embedded hardware abstraction layer libraries that exist now that just make it really, really easy to get working on, like an Arduino or something like that. So I think that's a fun thing to look into if you're interested in that.
So do you see the microcontroller vendor providing library in Rust now, or is it still more?
The focus is still C, simply because there's an enormous amount of momentum that the industry has, you know. But I think there's an emerging consensus that Rust is the future, and C is simply sort of like this legacy thing that will probably be around in some form until the end of the universe. But you know, Cobol is still around, but Rust will probably be the new thing in that space, I think.
Yeah, C++ is not going anywhere in the games industry. There's too much tooling, and there's requirements by console manufacturers as well. So I can't see Rust getting into the video game industry other than maybe back-end server stuff and tooling, internal tooling. But the games, I think, will generally be written in C++. And if you're choosing to work on engines like Unreal or Unity, you really don't have much choice anyway, which is unfortunate. I'm pushing hard in Rust all the time, and you find that people in the video game industry have very strong opinions, and they're very slow to change their minds. I find web developers much more flexible in that regard, always looking for new tech and new ideas.
Okay, I think there is another question here. Okay, wow, thank you everyone. Thank you, Felix, sharing your experience. So there is 2 Discord group. So one for Bristol, one for Cardiff. You can join both, of course. I think the link is somewhere in the Zoom. It's in the event page as well. I'll probably send an email with things that I wrote about, how to contribute to Valorant, if you're interested in that, link to resources. And that's it. So that was the first experience for a hybrid meetup. We might do that again in the future. It wasn't an awful experience. I think it was okay. So let's talk to you soon. Maybe hang out on the road.
Sorry, say a couple of words, please. Sorry, my name's Chris. I kind of help in the Rust and C++ Cardiff group, and I think it's absolutely fantastic that we finally got these 2 groups to kind of work together, and the talks today have been fantastic. So thank you so much for kind of getting this working. So the C++ and Rust group in Cardiff is sponsored by Esri. I also kind of work for Esri along with a couple of other people, Alex and Kira, and currently we're actually doing we're actually looking for some growth. So if you're interested in working in C++ or in Rust, because we recently just moved over to Rust for some web technologies, then I will put an email in the chat, seedlight@esri.com, and we'll get talking if you're interested. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're probably going out to our pubs outside. I think Josh is going to hang out in the Discord channel, Discord servers. So you can always go and have a chat with Josh if you want. And I say see you soon, all of you.
See you
Bye.
soon. Thanks, Bakel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.